My sister Amelia was born in 1843, and we had a brother, Frank. My parents were poor West Virginia farmers, but they had a lot of land. A railroad company approached them to buy their land because they wanted to build a terminal on their land. My parents very wisely sold the land to the railroad company and received a very handsome sum of money for that land. Unfortunately, my father died soon after. My brother Frank became ill, but my mother had heard of the healing waters of White Sulphur Springs in Rathbone, Ohio. So we moved to Rathbone so that Frank could take the waters. While at Rathbone, my mother learned of the female college at Ohio Wesleyan University. She wanted Amelia and me to both go to college, so we moved to Delaware. We made the American House Hotel our home at the corner of Winter and Sandusky Street. Both Amelia and I attended Ohio Wesleyan, and even our brother Frank eventually did, and graduated in 1867. While at Ohio Wesleyan, Amelia and I both fell in love. I fell in love with Marshall Blair Clason, and she fell in love with Valoris Todd Hills, or VT as he was known. Marshall was a brilliant academic scholar. He founded the Gamma chapter of the Sigma Chi fraternity at Ohio Wesleyan. They did a lot of literary performances throughout the campus area. He graduated in 1858, and I graduated in 1859 from the classical course of the Ohio Wesleyan Female College. Well, as you can tell by the date, it wasn't long after that the war between the states broke out. Marshall, on September 15, 1862, enlisted into the Union Army. VT had enlisted a year before. So on September 15th, Marshall enlists, but I said, "You are not leaving until we are married." So 8 days later, on September 23rd, he and I were married before he left to join and serve in the Army. Both VT and Marshall became captains in the Union Army. VT was seriously wounded and was discharged and returned to Delaware. Unfortunately, Marshall met his demise at the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain in Georgia on June 27, 1864, at the age of 27. Of course, I was extremely distraught at the fact that I had lost my very young husband, and distraught at the fact that I had no body to bury, nor to have a proper funeral. So, my brother-in-law, VT, offered to go to Georgia and attempt to retrieve the body and bring it back to Delaware. He went with 2 quarts of the finest whiskey, which turned out to be the perfect bribe to get him onto the battlefield, to locate Captain Clason, to get the burial box out of the ground and to the train station. Eventually a train came that was loaded with wounded and dead horses. The stench was horrible, but VT got on that train with the burial box. They made it to Chattanooga, and in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the body was prepared for burial. We then were able to have a proper funeral, and Captain Marshall Blair Clason rests right here. I then, after his death, started the Clason Fund for the Literature of Citizenship because of his love of literature. That kind of led me on a path to finding other ways to benefit Ohio Wesleyan. So I donated funding to decorate the interior of the newly made Manette Hall, which was just for women. Then Amelia and I joined forces, and we raised the funds for a new organ that would go into the newly erected and being built Great Chapel or University Hall. That organ was built by the uncle to Teddy Roosevelt. In 1893, and in the cornerstone of that building, Gray Chapel University Hall, there is a metal box. And in that metal box, there are artifacts that have been placed in that box. 1893 was the dedication at which I spoke, and the organist who came and played the organ for the first time was none other than the organist for the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France. I was then encouraged to do something bigger. I wanted to create a building on campus that would serve as a memorial to my family and to also serve the music department at Ohio Wesleyan. So, in 1908, I was a part of the groundbreaking for what was to become Sanborn Hall. I was extremely proud of that building, which still stands today and serves as the music building for Ohio Wesleyan. That building, too, in its cornerstone, has a metal box with artifacts in it. When you go inside that building, right inside the lobby, there's a plaque that says, "In loving memory of Martha A. Sanborn," my mother, Amelia Sanborn Hills, my sister, and Frank B. Sanborn, my brother. This building is erected by Ann Sanborn Clayton, 1909. Yes, I am very proud of that building. V.T. himself was a fine, upstanding citizen and civic leader in Delaware. He was the owner of the Hills Grocery Store, which is on South Sandusky Street. That brick building still stands. It actually is the home to Delaware Farmers Exchange. He was also part of the Hills Paper Company in Stratford. He was a stockholder and president of the Delaware County Bank. He was a world-famous cattle breeder, and he raised the funds for the Delaware Carnegie Library. Amelia and I were very close to each other in many ways, so no wonder we lived next to each other, by each other. We both lived at the intersection of Franklin Street and Lincoln Avenue. She lived in the tall red brick building that still stands on the northwest corner, and I lived in the what is now white brick Gothic building on the southeast corner. Rumors started to fly soon after we moved in that we had a tunnel built under the road that would connect our two homes. Some rumors are true. There was such a tunnel. It was not a part of the Underground Railroad. I was a member of the William Street Methodist Church. However, in 1886, Amelia and I chartered the Asbury Methodist Church. As the church was being built, we offered to pay for their now iconic stained glass window because we did not want to hear bells toll in our neighborhood. Thank you very much for coming.